Hello guys, welcome to the Pig Daily, episode number 79. Today I'm going to be having a bit of a shorter episode, including question time. It's going to be under half an hour. That's my promise to you after a couple of epically long episodes over the last week or two. So it's going to be talking about the Hammer Securities Anti-Reaper TvT. And in regards to this really weird build I'm going to be looking at, we're also going to be talking about playing the meta, and also kind of playing a little bit slower if you're not one of these blazing fast players, rather than just trying to copy what pros do, creating your own build, doing it in a way which logically makes sense, especially within the current meta, so it's strong against certain things, so it doesn't demand crazy amounts of APM out of you, and generally making it work. So let's dive straight into game, and let's start looking at this fantastic build. Now, for you guys who don't know, by the way, Hammer Securities are actually the mercenary marauders that have like double hit points and just destroy everything in the Wings of Liberty campaign. Actually, I should show you guys. For anyone who didn't play the campaign, you're missing out. Wings of Liberty campaign was actually amazing. I remember being a bit like, no, this isn't Tesco, just Brood War at first. But yeah, Hammer Securities. Basically, they're a private security firm based in the Kelmorian Combine. They're these dudes. Unfortunately, I can't make it big. But that's what we're looking at. And I thought it was really funny because this guy on ladder who happens to be called Hammer, no idea if it's meant to be a reference to that or not, happens to just do a Marauder opening in TvT that absolutely shuts down Reapers. So I thought this was really funky, really cool. And I figured let's have a fun episode. We talk about this cool build and also talk about that idea of, hey, let's not just kind of necessarily have to copy the pros every single game. It's great to learn from top players. But do we necessarily need to play exactly the same way they do? No, it's a strategy game. The amount of options you have in StarCraft are vast. You know, we're always kind of dumbing the game down and saying, oh, this is this is a game where mechanics are super important. They are, and you can do a lot with good, crisp play. You know what else is amazing though? Creating your own strategy, doing things that are smart, doing things outside of the box. And especially watching your opponents who don't understand the game as well as you really flounder and not really understand how to react to what you're doing. So, this is against me on ladder. This is when I just... My TvT was atrocious like 2 weeks ago, and I just swapped over to doing a 2 Hellion, 2 Reaper opening. I was still figuring it out, and I had no idea how to react against this, and he totally wrecked me. And I was so confused the entire time. So first of all, let's just take a look at this build, how it works, and I'll talk about some of the implications of it. So... he starts off just with a straight up barracks gas after the depot, and then he drops a second gas as well. Now, the first gas actually just here's like a cute little timing here. Let's go back and just walk you guys through the build. So what he does is he starts the barracks and then he queues up the next SCV to the gas, and so he's not dropping it straight away on 75 minerals, and then as it gets there, he also grabs another SCV and puts down another refinery. So he goes double gas at exactly the same time on 17 supply. So it's barracks, double gas, and then as soon as this barracks is finished, he immediately walls off with a depot. So his whole goal here is to try and deny scouting. And this is a very important part of this build. This is super important because he does not want you to see anything. Now, my scout here gets confused because apparently he can see through the future and knows there's something blocking the ramp, so he tries to get through up there. He's going to come up and be like, whoa, what's happening, man? And see a tech lab on a barracks before any units have popped out. And already you're going to kind of freak out your opponent. Now, obviously, with experienced players, we'll be able to adapt and react to this. But he just goes straight from a Marauder, gets a factory, and then he's going to start concussive shells. And this is the build, man. In a meta where everyone complains about how you can just die suddenly to Reapers jumping into your base, one man has figured it out. Build Marauders with concussive shells, and Reapers can't do anything to annoy you. Your Marauders, with the 50% slow from the concussive shells, will just wreck the Reapers. They can't get away, and with a bit of stutter step micro, you'll always hunt them down and kill them, which also means you're denying your opponent's scouting. Look at this. Hammer's also already preparing a little bit of a wall over here to try and potentially block the Reapers hopping up. My Reaper here is like, all right, let's go take a look at what's going on. Ah, what the hell? Ah, run! And I can't get any vision of what's going on. He's already splitting his Marauders up on the multiple jumping paths and looking really cool. So from here, he's going to go straight into a starport. So Tech Lab straight away on the factory. Does want to build a Cyclone immediately. I'm going to keep building some more depots. So by the way, this third depot usually goes down around the time that starport begins, if you want the exact time. But usually you can just follow the rule of don't get supply blocked. And after you build 3 Marauders, your Marauders can start to move out. Look at that. Goodbye, Reaper. This is so great. I love this build. And he swaps the starport over onto the tech lab. So he's got a Cyclone out, which is a very good general purpose anti-air unit. And keep in mind at this point, guys, look at his vision. He has no idea what's going on. This is really cool. Because some people have trouble reading what's going on, reacting exactly, Hammer's like, well, let's just save the money. Don't waste it scouting. And I'm just going to like have a one-size-fits-all response. Marauders are going to wreck Reapers and Hellions. The Cyclone is going to be really good against Banshees. Oh, but the command center is pretty late. So that's all right. Isn't going to have a lot of scans. Just builds a Raven and Cloak. So he's actually going to go 1 Raven and then 1 Banshee. And this is beautiful. This is so sick. For the command center timing, by the way, if you guys who want the exact timings, all of this information, of course, will be linked. If you guys scroll down to the YouTube description, there'll probably be an annotation at the start of the video as well. If you guys on Twitch as well, it'll be up there just shortly afterwards. I will be linking that out for all of you. And so that command center, when does that start? I wrote this down somewhere. About 3 minutes 30 or 37 supply. So you start your command center just as your starport's finishing, just before you start up starport production. And that's going to be really good. And then as soon as your natural expansion's finished, you want to drop that double gas. After the Cyclone, he did squeeze out a Widow Mine. Widow Mine, once again, just a good general purpose, bit of scouting, bit of free damage on any harassment out there. Just something which he squeezes in here. Now, something you got to remember is the factory does sit idle for a while after that because you don't have the gas to produce out of it. But then as you get these double gas going on the natural, constantly building depots, you've got out a Raven and a Banshee. That's your starport done on the tech lab. So your barracks has swapped over and built a reactor. It's built a few Marines. You've still got those 3 Marauders from earlier. You go your second and third barracks, and then you swap the starport and the barracks back around. You start producing medevacs, and you want to start stim and just more Marine production while starting up that siege tank production again. From here, you add a single engineering bay to start those upgrades, and then you want to add 2 more barracks before third command center. So this is a very aggressive sort of middle stage of the build where you're super safe early. You're not really expanding that quickly, but you're so ready to just shut down any aggression that comes your way. Let's think a little bit about why this is so cute. The meta is Reapers and Hellions jumping in your base. Bam, you suddenly don't need to have sick micro where if you're not watching and all your Marines or Reapers get hit by their Reaper bombs, you just lose the game. You can just kind of be like, yeah, shut it down, man. Oh, there's a Banshee? You don't need to like drop your scan perfectly. You just got a Raven and a Cyclone. You just like A-move them at the Banshee and it gets the job done. Like, this is simplifying your entire early game process. And let's take a look at this. And this is something you can do. You don't necessarily need to be blazing fast. Look at the APM in this game. 96 for Hammer versus my 167. But he's getting all the tasks that he needs done. His macro is on point. He's about to start harassing me with a Banshee going into the main. He's got up, a good amount of production. We're very similar on workers. I'm slightly ahead there. But this is generally a really good way to play. Because if you're not crazy fast, you want to simplify the points in the game where you would otherwise have to spam out your APM. Comes in here with this Banshee, and he just pokes around with it. He doesn't go too hard, just picks off a few SCVs, and kind of gets out of there. Actually, even survives. That was my screw up. And at the same time, as I'm distracted in the main, he waits for that. So he always times so the Raven hits just a little bit after, drops 2 missile turrets while you're dealing with the Banshee in the main. And there we go, it does a bit of damage, 8 workers. And I start doing this little tank poke on the back door, which is pretty ill-advised considering the circumstances. And at the same time, he's got tanks starting to pump out. Just drops his Marauders, Marines, Tank, and Cyclone on top of this. And he's got this great little defensive moment here where he's like in a really good spot. Now from here, let's just fast forward through the rest of the play, as it really is an opening play. And you can transition into macro off this for sure. He's just going to add 2 more barracks. Starts to slip up on his macro a little bit at this stage of the build. Gets a little bit excited there. But he's going to add 2 more barracks and then a 3rd command center. So like I said, 5 barracks with 1 engineering bay upgrading. Obviously, you want all reactors on those, and that's going to be great. But it times out really nicely, right? So you restart tank production, you start double medevac production, you start stim, and then you're going to have this beautiful drop timing where you don't have some combat shields, but you've got 3 Marauders. You don't actually have that many Marines, so that's okay. And I think you can actually do it. If he macroed slightly better, Hammer could have had 3 tanks. As it is, he's got 4 medevacs with just 2 siege tanks, 3 marauders, a bunch of marines. He's still got this Banshee poking around, being annoying whenever he's got the APM for it, and his Ravens even being what I generally like to call a major annoyance, or a bag of a certain appendage, as you guys who watch the stream regularly would know. So coming in up here, he's just going to do a Doom drop in the main, because his third is not particularly fast, so he's distracting with these other tools, the Raven and the Banshee, which kind of recycle very well. Does a Doom drop in the main and just shreks everything. I tried a base trade. He's a little bit slow at home to siege up, but he's just got too many Marines Marauders with Stim. I accidentally unsieged my tanks here as well. This is some pro gamer Terran play. Like I said, this is what I just started doing this build, but he wrecks me, tears me apart. Alright, so that's the build. For you guys, like I said, the notes will be linked. Should be either in the annotation or down in the YouTube link below. But start shouting out your questions about this play. Start shouting them out in chat now. Like I said, I want this to be a quicker episode. I don't want it to be crazy long. But this really is, okay, that's the play. It's simple, it's defensive, but why do I like this so much, and why do I like to see this sort of play? And it really does come back to the APM and that factor. I mean, if we look back in the game, he started to miss macro and get supply blocked quite a bit as the game went on, which tells me, I don't know, maybe it's just this game. Maybe I'm being hypercritical. Maybe he just had an off day. But really, from about this 7-minute mark, he started to float a lot of minerals. Hammer here didn't have that much APM, and I feel like even though he's a great player, I think he definitely struggled with keeping up in terms of the macro while actually harassing and stuff at the same time. 1,600 minerals. He's going to hit a huge supply block on 110 supply because that depot got delayed. Very slow to put down his third command center. And that's the thing. Not everyone has the necessary APM to keep up in these later stages of the game, but he's designed it so that he can avoid falling behind instantly at the start of the game. Remember, right at the start, he just sits there. He doesn't scout. He just defends with the Marauders. He splits them into the locations. Even without looking at them, they like automatically defend anything coming his way. The Cyclone and the Raven automatically defends anything. And then he follows that up with these really decisive little bits of pressure into a big Doom drop in the main. And that's just sick. And you could do this as a much faster player, you know, and still have the great macro transition off the back of it because it plays so well into the meta and it plays so well to someone who has some mechanical restrictions. So this is really awesome. So let's go back and kind of just think about that a little bit. The early game. Let's think about this from the opponent's point of view. You've seen a tech lab. You've seen this. You've seen Marauders. You can't get in to see any other information. What is running through the opponent's mind? And what makes this build so useful and so powerful is really the fact that it's going to freak out your opponent. It not only shuts down aggression, but it kind of overcommits to shutting down aggression, right? If there was a potential weakness to this build, well, every build has a weakness. Every player has a weakness. You know, there are sometimes players who do creative builds, and when I talk to them about it, they kind of insist that it's like the best build ever and it stops everything, which is never true. That's just not StarCraft. It's a game where everything has a weakness. But with this build, this command center is pretty late. It doesn't go down until about 3 minutes 30. You're committing a lot to like tech and stuff, but your opponent doesn't know that you're being that you're doing this. Your opponent doesn't know. And after seeing that, Tech Lab, Barracks, of course, they've got to be worried about a weird Marauder Hellion push, a weird Stim Marauder Marine push, because it's so hard for the opponent to scout. I dropped a scan. I actually probably should have dropped it slightly further north so I could see the command center as well. But even then, you see this starport with a Tech Lab, and it's designed to make you think Banshees. At home, you're building turrets. You're maybe getting a Raven. You're building multiple Vikings and Cyclones, but he only builds one Banshee and just uses that to force the reaction and actually has the Raven there. Playing into the meta of, hey, Terrans are going crazy aggressive with Reapers and Hellions, so I'm going to shut that down. But also, Terran players are playing crazy aggressive with Banshees. If I show aggressive Banshee tech, which every Terran player scans or scouts for or just blindly prepares for, he can make sure his opponents are playing very safe. Look at this. I drop another scan trying to figure out what's happening. He can play into that image and be like, hey, you better prepare your defenses, but he's actually not really preparing to do that much damage with it. In fact, it's the auto turret which often ends up doing more damage than the Banshee itself. So he's kind of doing an ultra safe, ultra defensive build that stops all types of aggression, but within the meta of TvT. with the information that he shows his opponent has to be really friggin' worried because they don't have full scouting information. He denies that. And what he does see scares the crap out of him. And that's exactly why this build works. If you think about any build like this, which plays blind, which plays ultra defensively, and is safe against everything, well, usually you say the weakness to that is that it's too safe. If you're trying to stop everything, you're not really being efficient against anything. If you try to counter every possibility, like it's just not that efficient. And what Hammer does sacrifice here is economy. Technically, what you'd be sacrificing there, or how you would counter this as the other player, would be to say, you know what, I'm just going to take a faster third command center, I'm just going to macro up, and, you know, I'm going to be ahead of you by that 8-minute mark or so when your Doom Drop comes in. As long as I don't take massive damage to like the auto turret or the Banshee, I'm gonna be fine. Because you don't really put on a lot of pressure. But because players are so paranoid about all the aggressive options, most players are just going to get stuck in that mindset of build Hellions, build Reapers, get out Cyclones, get out Vikings, get out all these things you need to stop that aggression. And that is part of why the Stim Tank Evac, the Stim Tank Marauder Doom Drop ends up being so damn powerful. Just play into that meta. Also, because it's so ultra defensive and stops everything, you don't even need to have good scouting information with this. You really don't react to anything. Hammer here just plays this build, and that's the way he plays it. And it just seems crazy to someone who hasn't got experience with the build. What actually happened when I played against this drop went into my main, and I was playing this off stream, right? And the first thing that ran through my head was like, what the frack? Like map hacker or something. Like literally those words just popped into my head. Because it just seemed so bizarre, because he'd thrown me off with the turrets, he'd thrown me off with the Banshees, and then this drop comes into my main, literally right as I'm like, okay, I think I need to push out and put some pressure on him. I need to figure out what he's doing, I need to put pressure on him, this is TvT, aggression's very important, so I'm kind of like moving out on the map right now, and I'm like, okay, cool, like, yeah, we can do this, alright. Boost my tank evac to go reinforce the front, let's start sieging him, and... What? Oh my god, this is so bullshit. This is just unfair, man. This guy's full of crap. What is going on? And I immediately, I had to message him after this game and just say like, what was that build, man? He's like, yeah, man, I just do this all the time. He's like, yeah, I'm a bit overly safe, but normally I equalize with the Banshee and the turret harassment. Like, he's like, I just shut down Reapers. Like, you know, Reapers were annoying me, so I made this build up and it's sick. And I'm like, this is a sick build. This is cool. So I really like this build. Would I say this is like, you know, you're a top GM Terran player, you're U-Thermal, are you going to do this on in a tournament game? Probably not, because the absolute tip-top players are probably going to be like, whoa, okay. They're just going to like, you know, react a little bit more refined to it, toe the line of greed behind it. They're going to respond well to everything, and they probably would get a bit ahead because there's just a complete absence of pressure. So they're just going to be able to like do everything so perfectly at home. But if you're playing with 100 APM, if you're playing with 200 APM, if you're not a pro gamer, if you want to also throw a spanner in the works of these Terran players who just play a little bit mindlessly in TvT, this is a really cute adjustment that you can do. So that's awesome. So there are some questions in chat. Can we see the early build order again is one question. Well, I can show you the early build order on screen while I answer questions. That can be a good way to do it. So let's answer questions. Shout out any questions you guys have. I just thought this was a cute little bit of creativity and a player thinking about the game for themselves. I always like to showcase someone who just makes up a build on their own, thinks about it. So to start things off, guys, it is just a standard depot barracks. You do not scout at all in the early game of this build. The first time you see their base is with your Cloaked Banshee. And then you rally your next SCV to the gas, and then you drop 2 gases at once on 17. From here, you guys can watch the rest of the build. It will all be linked, of course. Let's answer a few of these questions. So... looks like everyone's just sad about Snoot and Drogo. No one actually wants to talk about this cute TvT build. Halo Legend says, by the way, I saw Petite Drogo playing against Snootsling Baneling. If only Drogo watched your video about PvZ upgrades, he ended up getting +2 attack and not 1-1. I actually talked to Drogo about it. Drogo's like, yeah, I was watching that daily. He's like, oh, can you give me like the actual numbers on it? Like again, like, is it actually better? And he's like, I feel like, okay, maybe +2 attack isn't that important. He's like, but I think +3 attack is still pretty important. He's like, I don't actually know the maths or the numbers though. Like, is it? Like, does +3 help with Archon's Versling Bane? And I went and crunched the numbers for that and actually figured it out. And I actually tweeted the stuff during the games. +3 attack does help the outer ring of Archon Splash. kill Zerglings, kill Banelings in 2 shots as long as they don't have Carapace.
Upgrade.
But I think that's about the only question I've got in chat. There's nothing about the TvT here, so yeah. Oh, there's 1 or 2 questions coming up now. Also, if you're going Blinkstalkers, +2 attack is important. So Drogo is playing a Blinkstalker style, and +2 is important to 3-shot Zerglings rather than 4-shot them. But anyway, back to this actual game and this daily. Mahogany says, if you play against this, would you just get an early 3rd CC? Yeah, in future, I think I would get an early 3rd CC, maybe build a bunker, and I'd just be very important to like scout their natural and check that they're not doing like a weird 1-base stim timing off that early tech lab. And otherwise, I'd just, get an earlier 3rd CC, play pretty generically. I might still go 2nd and 3rd barracks before 3rd CC, but I definitely make sure I focus on my economy a decent amount. And just don't overextend into them. Like, I'd just stop building Reapers and Hellions as soon as I spot this. I'd just be like, no Reapers, no Hellions. Potentially, I might go straight into tank evac Marine pressure against this. That would be potentially a good way to punish it. And then get out, like, your Cyclone Viking / turret anti-air at home after the tank evac. Because they've spent a lot of gas on Marauders and the concussive shells. They're not going to have the fastest possible Banshees out. Brian Chill says, would a double medevac marine drop shut this down hard? Yeah, I mean, if you just blindly do a 2-on-1, which is not a very good build for TvT, then yes, you could hit at a timing which would probably do pretty well against it. But I mean, that's kind of an iffy build to do in TvT. So even though I see a lot of people doing it, so yeah, that could work okay. What else? Is 1 Banshee good, or do you wait for 2? Says Russian Sith Lord. Well, with this particular build, you actually go a Raven first, as you can see here, so it builds up energy, and then you build just 1 Banshee. Because he's not really focusing on doing the damage with the Banshee, he's just making sure his opponent kind of overreacts. That's part of how this build works, is you just get the 1 Banshee to so they see the cloak, they see the Banshee, they freak out, they make a lot of defense. You don't really overcommit to it though. It's more a distraction to allow the Raven to do damage and allow you to squeeze the Raven into your build with that Tech Lab starport, which makes you very safe against the counter pressure. No worries, Halo Legend. I really wanted to talk about that as well. I just realized halfway through answering the question, during a TvT daily, I probably shouldn't spend the whole time talking about Snoot and Drogo playing Lingbane versus Archons. I do think if Snoot base traded on Frost rather than fighting the army, he would have won. But bad luck to him.
Complete.
Still, Boyo says, isn't this build kind of bad if they scout your Marauder and just play standard or a bit greedy? Yeah, yep. I'm not sure if you typed that one out before I said that. As I was saying just before, if you scout this and just go for a 3rd CC quite early, you can usually get a little bit ahead in economy, but it's still going to be very hard because, seeing the Banshee, for instance, you've still got to react hard to that, and then the Doom drop still hits a pretty crisp timing. So definitely that would be great. The real problem is, how do you scout against this build? If you knew this is exactly what someone's doing, then you could do it. But remember, bring it back to the last point, which I really want to emphasize, guys. Scouting. He denies my vision. I had to drop multiple scans, which really slows down my build, just to confirm what was going on because I was so confused about what I was facing. And that's part of it. Those Marauders stop your Reapers from getting any information. You can't even scout whether or not there's a natural down. We go back to that 4-minute mark. I don't know there's a natural until I actually drop a scan. And that's a big part of the build. The information denial power that these Marauders give is huge. Look at this. So the Reaper's going to try and come in, and he's... Oh no, I actually drop a scan. Yeah, and you've got to scan to get to see the natural. And the Reaper tries to go in, he just gets killed. It's really good at denying information and making it very hard for your opponent to make the correct call. So that's why this build works out so well. It's really cute. I love it. Not necessarily something, like I said, you're going to see TY doing in BlizzCon this week, or Uthermal doing in a tournament or something like that. But it is a really sick build, and it's logical, and it makes sense on many different levels. And this is just a great example of how you can think outside the box, and you can say, look, if everyone's doing this, I don't need to do the same thing. Let's counter it. And I'm sure Hammer with this build started out with Reapers are annoying me. Let's make Marauders. That'll shut that down. And then he's like, okay, sick. All right, you know what? Banshees are annoying me. Let's make a Raven and a Cyclone. All right, cool. He's like, all right, this build is overly defensive. How the shit do I equalize? He's like, well, you know what? I don't really need to react to anything. Let's skip the scout. That's going to make me a bit more efficient. All right, what else can I do? And he's like, let's deny his scouting. I've got concussive shell marauders. He's going to have to drop scans to see what's going on. Oh, okay, awesome. Let's get one cloak banshee. So he overreacts to that and cuts into his economy even more. And suddenly, his opponents are facing an enigma. It's very hard for them to counteract it because they don't know what's going on. So that's what's so cool about this. Low APM builds are amazing. I want to try and do a few more of these. It's sick. It's very, very cool. So thank you very much for hanging out, guys. I appreciate the support. Of course, the stream will be continuing. But if you're watching on YouTube, I will be back with one more daily on Sunday evening, EU and American time. And then I will be off to BlizzCon the day after that. So there will be a break of a week and a half or so. I'm going to be staying in LA for 2 days, going to Disneyland, which is going to be sick. Going down to Palm Springs as well. Have myself a little massage and chill down in the spas and whatnot. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, keep tuning into BlizzCon the next few days. We've got the rest of BlizzCon opening week. And yeah, I hope Drogo can keep on going. Thanks for hanging out. That's all for now, guys. Don't forget to hug a cactus, lick a walrus, and of course, punch a watermelon to the moon. I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.